He thought his billions gave him the right to treat her like trash. He thought she was just a nobody wiping his table, someone he could crush beneath his designer shoes for a laugh. He poured wine on her apron, mocked her poverty, and demanded she beg for her job. But Marcus Sterling made one fatal calculation that night. He didn't look at her eyes, and he certainly didn't ask for her last name. Because the moment she whispered it, the air left the room, and the billionaire realized he hadn't just insulted a waitress. He had just declared war on the most dangerous family in the city. This is the story of how arrogance met its match. The restaurant was called Lubli, a name that meant the forgotten in French, though the irony was lost on the clientele. Nothing here was forgotten. Everything was calculated to be memorable, from the hand-blown Venetian crystal hanging from the ceiling to the velvet-lined booths that cost more to reserve for an evening than most people earned in a year. It was situated on the 45th floor of the Sovereign Tower in Manhattan, floating above the city like a glowing jewel. Elara adjusted her apron, smoothing the stark white fabric over her black slacks. Her hands were dry, the skin slightly cracked from weeks of handling harsh sanitizers and polishing silver until her reflection looked back at her, warped and tired. Table 7 needs water, sparkling, not still. If you bring them still, they'll look at you like you just handed them sewer water, Julian, the floor manager, hissed as he breezed past her. Julian was a man who wore suits that were too tight and a cologne that smelled like desperation and sandalwood. He treated the staff like cattle and the customers like gods. "On it, Julian," Elara said softly. Her voice was calm, possessed of a natural dignity that usually annoyed Julian. He preferred his staff frantic. It made him feel necessary. Elara picked up the crystal carafe. She moved through the dining room with the practiced invisibility of a ghost. That was the job, to be present when needed and non-existent when not. She was 23, with dark hair pulled back into a severe bun that highlighted high cheekbones and eyes the color of stormy slate. Most of the patrons assumed she was a student working her way through NYU, or perhaps an aspiring actress waiting for a break that would never come. They looked right through her, and that was exactly how Elara wanted it. She poured the water for Table 7, a pair of tech CEOs discussing a merger, and retreated to the service station. She took a deep breath, checking the Cartier watch on her wrist before quickly pulling her sleeve down to hide it. It was a slip-up, wearing it today, a gift from her 18th birthday. She usually left it in her locker, but she had been rushing this morning. "He's here!" A frantic whisper came from Sarah, the hostess. Sarah looked like she was about to cry. "Sterling, he's here, and he's in a mood." The temperature in the service station seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus Sterling. Even among the elite of New York, Marcus was a polarizing figure. At 32, he was the heir to Sterling Heavy Industries. He was handsome in a sharp, predatory way, all jawline and expensive dentistry, but his reputation was vile. He was known for snapping his fingers at staff, sending back food that was perfectly cooked just to watch the chef squirm, and leaving tips that were insults rather than gratuities. "I can't take him, Elara," Sarah whispered, clutching a menu. "Last time he came in, he told me I had a face for radio, because I stuttered when I read the specials. Please." Elara looked at the terrified girl. She sighed, a sound that carried the weight of 1,000 shifts. "I'll take Table 4. Go help the sommelier." "Thank you," Sarah breathed, practically fleeing the scene. Elara steeled herself. She had dealt with difficult men before. She had grown up in a house full of sharks, though nobody at Lubli knew that. To them, she was just Elara, the quiet girl who never complained about double shifts. She walked out onto the floor just as Marcus Sterling strode in. He didn't walk. He marched, as if the floorboards should be grateful for his weight. On his arm was a woman who looked more like a hostage than a date, a stunning blonde model named Chloe, who was currently gazing at the floor, trying not to trip in her 6-inch heels. Marcus stopped in the center of the room, not waiting to be seated. He scanned the restaurant, his lip curling in a sneer. When his eyes landed on table 4, the prime window seat overlooking Central Park, he grunted. "Finally," he said, loud enough for half the room to hear. "Someone cleaned this table. It looks filthy." The table was pristine. It had been polished 3 times in the last hour. Ilara stepped forward. "Good evening, Mr. Sterling. Welcome to Lubli. Your table is ready." Marcus looked down at her. He was tall, 6'2", and he used his height as a weapon. He looked at her shoes, sensible, non-slip, her apron, spotless, and finally her face. He didn't smile. "I didn't ask for a greeting," Marcus said, his voice a low, bored drawl. "I asked for the table to be cleaned. Are you deaf or just stupid?" The restaurant went quiet. The tech CEOs at table 7 stopped talking. A fork clinked against a plate. Ilara didn't flinch. She held his gaze, her expression neutral. "I can assure you the table has been sanitized, sir, but I will wipe it down again for your comfort." She pulled a cloth from her apron. As she reached for the table, Marcus stepped forward, invading her personal space. "Do it fast," he snapped. "I don't like looking at the help while I eat." Ilara wiped the invisible dust from the gleaming mahogany. Her heart was beating a slow, steady rhythm against her ribs. "Patience," she told herself. "It's just a job. He's just a man." But as she straightened up, Marcus Sterling laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the sound of a child pulling legs off a spider. "Look at her," Marcus said to Chloe, gesturing at Ilara. "The way she scrubs. It's natural, isn't it? Some people are born to lead, and some are born to wipe up the mess. It's genetics, really." Chloe gave a nervous, tight smile. "Marcus, please, let's just sit." "I'm teaching you a lesson, babe," Marcus said, sliding into the booth and spreading his arms. "You have to know your place in the food chain. And she," he pointed a manicured finger at Ilara, "is the plankton." Ilara stood straight, clutching the cloth. "May I get you a drink menu, sir?" "I know what I want," Marcus barked. "A bottle of the 1982 Petrus, and don't bring me the swill you serve tourists. I want to see the bottle before you open it. If the cork is even slightly dry, I'm taking it out of your tip. Not that you'd know what a good tip looks like." "Very good, sir," Ilara said. She turned on her heel and walked away. As she entered the kitchen, her hands shook slightly. Not from fear, but from a rage so cold it burned. "He's at it again?" Julian asked, looking up from his tablet. "He's charming, as always," Ilara said dryly. "He wants the 82 Petrus." Julian's eyes widened. "That's a $6,000 bottle. Don't drop it, Ilara. If you break that, you'll be washing dishes until you're 80. "I won't drop it," Ilara said. She went to the wine cellar, the cool air soothing her flushed skin. She found the dusty bottle, cradling it like a newborn. She didn't know it yet, but that bottle was about to be the catalyst for the worst night of her life and the end of Marcus Sterling's social career. The dining room was humming with the low-frequency buzz of extreme wealth. Ilara approached table 4, the bottle of Petrus cradled in her arm, label facing out. Marcus was busy berating Chloe. "And that dress makes you look desperate. I told you to wear the red one. Why do you never listen?" Chloe was staring at her lap, her knuckles white as she gripped her napkin. She looked up with relief when Ilara arrived. "The 1982 Petrus, sir," Ilara announced, presenting the bottle. Marcus stopped talking and snatched the bottle from her grasp, almost causing her to lose her balance. He didn't check the label. He held it up to the light, squinting theatrically. "Sediment looks heavy," he muttered. "Probably stored upright by some idiot in your stockroom." "Our wines are stored horizontally in climate-controlled cellars, sir," Ilara corrected gently. Marcus slammed the bottle down on the table. The heavy thud made the silverware jump. "Did I ask for a lecture? Open it." Ilara produced her wine key. She worked with precision, cutting the foil and inserting the worm into the cork. She felt Marcus's eyes on her hands, waiting for a mistake. She extracted the cork smoothly, with a quiet pop, the sound of quality. She poured a small taste into Marcus's glass. He swirled it violently, sloshing the dark red liquid up the sides of the crystal. He took a sip, swished it around his mouth, and then made a face of pure disgust. He spat the wine back into the glass. "Vinegar!" he shouted. The entire restaurant froze. "Sir?" Ilara asked, confused. "That bottle has been—" "It's corked!" Marcus roared, his face turning a mottled red. "It tastes like wet cardboard and dog piss. Are you trying to poison me?" Ilara knew wine. She had grown up in vineyards in Tuscany during her summers. She could smell the aroma wafting from the glass, even from here. Blackcurrant, truffle, spice. It was perfect. He was lying. "Sir, I can assure you the wine is sound. Perhaps if you let it breathe for a moment." "Are you arguing with me?" Marcus stood up. He towered over her. "I spend more on wine in a month than you will make in your entire life. I say it's corked. Take it away." "I can bring the sommelier to verify." "I don't want the sommelier," Marcus yelled. He grabbed the glass of wine, the one he had spat into, and in a motion that seemed to happen in slow motion, he threw the contents at Ilara. The dark red liquid splashed across her chest. It soaked her white shirt, staining it the color of fresh blood. It dripped down her apron. A few drops splattered onto her face. The restaurant went deathly silent. Even the kitchen noise seemed to cut off. Ilara stood frozen. The cold liquid seeped through to her skin. She felt a droplet run down her cheek. The humiliation was physical, a heavy weight pressing on her shoulders. Marcus smirked, looking satisfied. He sat back down. "Now, look what you made me do. You're a mess. Get out of my sight and bring me a manager. Someone who knows how to treat a customer." Chloe, the date, gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "Marcus, you can't—" "Shut up," Marcus hissed at her. He looked back at Ilara. "Well? Move. You're dripping on the floor." Ilara didn't move. Her feet felt rooted to the expensive parquet flooring. The anger that had been simmering in her gut began to boil over, but she clamped down on it. "Not here. Not like this." She wiped the wine from her cheek with a slow, deliberate movement. Her eyes, usually soft and grey, had hardened into steel. "I will get the manager," Ilara said. Her voice didn't shake. It was terrifyingly calm. She turned and walked toward the kitchen, the back of her uniform soaked. She could feel the eyes of every patron on her. Some looked horrified, some looked amused, but no one said a word. That was the rule of the elite. Never interfere in a scene, just watch it. Julian met her at the kitchen doors. He saw the wine, he saw her face. "Oh God," Julian groaned. "What did you do, Ilara? Did you argue with him?" Ilara stared at her manager. "He threw the wine at me, Julian. He assaulted me." Julian ran a hand through his hair. "He's Marcus Sterling, Ilara. He spends $50,000 a month here. If he says the wine is corked, it's corked. If he throws it, you apologize for being in the way." "I will not apologize," Ilara said. "Then you're fired," Julian snapped. "I can't have waitresses who have ego problems. Go clean yourself up. Apologize to Mr. Sterling. and beg for his forgiveness. If he accepts, maybe I'll let you keep your job. If not, get your things." Elara looked at Julian. She saw a weak man terrified of a rich bully. "You want me to apologize to the man who just threw a drink on me?" "It's the hospitality industry, sweetheart," Julian sneered. "The customer is king. Now go." Elara took a deep breath. She looked down at her ruined shirt. She looked back at the dining room door. "Fine," Elara said. "I'll go talk to him." But she wasn't going to apologize. She was going to finish this. She grabbed a fresh napkin, not to clean herself, but to hold something as her hands curled into fists. She pushed back through the double doors. Marcus was laughing as she approached. He was telling Chloe a joke, completely unbothered by the human being he had just degraded. Elara stopped at the edge of the table. "Mr. Sterling," she said. Marcus looked up, annoyed. "Back so soon? I hope you brought a mop and a new bottle. On the house." "I didn't bring a bottle," Elara said, her voice rising slightly, carrying across the silent room. "I came to tell you that you are a sad, small man." Marcus dropped his fork. His mouth fell open. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Elara continued, stepping closer. The smell of the wine on her clothes was pungent. "You think your money makes you decent. It doesn't. It just makes you loud. You threw wine on me because you're insecure, and you treat your date like property because you're unlovable. You listen to me, you little—" Marcus began to rise, his face turning purple. "No, you listen," Elara cut him off. "I have served men with 10 times your wealth and 100 times your class. You aren't a king, Marcus. You're a toddler with a credit card." Julian came running out of the kitchen, panting. "Elara, stop. Mr. Sterling, I am so sorry. She's fired. She's leaving right now." "Fired?" Marcus laughed, a cruel, barking sound. "Oh, I'm going to make sure she never works in this city again. I'll have her blacklisted from every restaurant, every cafe, every fast food joint in New York. I'll ruin her life." He turned to Elara, pointing a finger in her face. "Do you know who I am? I am Sterling Industries. I can buy this building. I can buy your family. I can crush you like a bug." Elara looked at his finger. Then she looked him in the eye. "You want to talk about families, Marcus?" she asked softly. "I don't care about your trash family," Marcus spat. "Who are they? Farmers? Factory workers I laid off?" "My father," Elara said, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow echoed louder than his shouting, "is very particular about how people treat his daughter." "I don't care who your daddy is," Marcus screamed. "Tell me his name so I can buy his house and evict him." Elara smiled. It was a cold, terrifying smile. "His name," she said, "is Silas Vance." The name Silas Vance didn't just stop the conversation, it sucked the oxygen out of the room. In the world of high finance, celebrity billionaires like Marcus Sterling were the loud, flashy peacocks. They bought yachts, dated supermodels, and appeared on the covers of Forbes or GQ. They wanted to be seen. But Silas Vance was different. Silas was the ocean the peacocks swam in. He was the tectonic plate that shifted beneath their feet. He didn't make headlines. He owned the companies that printed the newspapers. He didn't buy buildings. He bought the debt of the banks that financed the buildings. Silas Vance was a ghost, a titan of private equity and global logistics, who was rumored to have more liquid capital than the GDP of small European countries. He was known for 2 things: his absolute ruthlessness in business and his fanatical obsession with privacy. Marcus Sterling's mouth opened and closed, resembling a fish pulled onto a dock. The color that had been high in his cheeks drained away, leaving him a pasty, waxen gray. "You're lying," Marcus whispered. but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. It was trembling. Elara didn't move. The wine was starting to get sticky on her skin, but she stood with the posture of a queen, addressing a peasant. "Am I?" "Silas Vance has one daughter," Marcus stammered, his mind racing through the dossiers he read to keep up with his competitors. She's never seen in public. No one knows what she looks like. She's studying in Switzerland. She's not here." He gestured vaguely at the restaurant, at the dirty dishes, at her apron. She wouldn't be wiping tables. "My father believes that to understand the value of $1, you must earn it," Elara said quietly. "He insisted I work a year in the service industry, anonymously, without access to his accounts. He wanted me to learn how real people live. He wanted me to see how men like you treat people when you think no one of consequence is watching." She took a step closer to the table. Marcus actually flinched, pressing his back against the leather booth. "And you know what, Marcus?" Elara tilted her head. "I learned a lot. I learned that money doesn't buy class. I learned that a suit is just a costume. And I learned that you are a bully who relies on the silence of others to feel powerful." Julian, the manager, was hyperventilating near the kitchen door. He looked from Elara to Marcus, his brain short-circuiting. If she was telling the truth. Oh God. He had just threatened to fire the daughter of the man who likely owned the mortgage on the Sovereign Tower. "Julian!" Marcus barked, trying to regain control. "Get security. This psychotic woman is impersonating a Vance. It's fraud. Get her out of here." Julian stepped forward, his hands shaking. "Elara, Miss Vance? Is it true?" "It is," Elara said. She looked at Julian with pity. "You don't have to call security, Julian. I'm leaving. I've seen enough." "No." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. The fear was turning back into aggression, the cornered rat instinct. "You aren't walking away. You humiliated me. You threatened me. I don't believe you. You're just a broke little waitress trying to scare me with a spooky name. If you were really a Vance, you wouldn't be wearing that." He pointed at her wine-stained uniform. Elara looked down at her clothes. Then, slowly, she reached into her apron pocket. She didn't pull out a phone. She pulled out the watch she had hidden earlier. She slipped it onto her wrist. The diamonds on the bezel caught the dim restaurant light, fracturing it into 1,000 rainbows. It was a vintage Cartier crash, a watch so rare that you couldn't just buy it. You had to be invited to buy it. It was worth more than the Ferrari Marcus had parked downstairs. "My father gave me this for my 18th birthday," Elara said, fastening the clasp. "He engraved the back. Do you want to see it?" She took it off again and tossed it onto the table. It clattered against the fine china, landing right in front of Marcus. He stared at it. He knew watches. He knew this watch. He picked it up with trembling fingers and flipped it over. The engraving was simple, elegant script. To Elara. "Remember who you are." S.V. Marcus stared at the initials. S.V. The silence stretched, taut as a violin string. This could be stolen," Marcus rasped, though he knew it wasn't. "You stole it." "From whom?" Elara asked. "Silas Vance? Do you think anyone steals from Silas Vance and lives to wear the jewelry?" Marcus dropped the watch as if it were red hot. I didn't know," he muttered. He looked at Chloe, his date, who was staring at Elara with wide, awe-struck eyes. "Of course you didn't know," Elara said. "That's the point. You treated me like garbage because you thought I was nobody. If you had known I was a Vance, you would have been charming. You would have kissed my hand. You would have offered me the best seat in the house. Your kindness is conditional, Marcus. That makes it worthless." "Look," Marcus said, a sickly smile forming on his face. He stood up. wiping his hands on his pants. "Elara, Miss Vance, we got off on the wrong foot. I've had a stressful day. The market is volatile. I apologize for the wine. It was an accident, a slip of the hand." "You threw it at my face," Elara said coldly. "A misunderstanding," Marcus laughed nervously, looking around the room for support. No one met his eyes. The tech CEOs at table 7 were recording the interaction on their phones. "I'll pay for the cleaning. Hell, I'll buy you a new dress. Let's sit down. Let me buy you dinner." "My treat. We can talk business. I've actually been trying to get a meeting with your father's firm regarding a bridge loan for my shipyard project." The audacity of the man was breathtaking. He was pivoting from abuser to sycophant in the span of 10 seconds. Elara looked at him with pure disgust. "You think you can buy your way out of this? You think a free dinner fixes the fact that you just publicly assaulted me?" "Assault is a strong word," Marcus said, his smile tightening. "Let's not get litigious. We're all civilized people here." "I'm not going to sue you, Marcus," Elara said. Marcus let out a breath of relief. Good. Good. Smart girl. No need to drag lawyers into this." "I don't need lawyers," Elara said. "I have my father." She reached into her pocket again. This time she did pull out her phone. It was a simple, black device. But unlike the staff phones, this one had no camera, no social media apps. It was a satellite-secure line. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked, his voice pitching up. "I'm calling him," Elara said. "I think he'd like to know why his daughter is coming home covered in red wine." "No, no, no!" Marcus panicked. He lunged forward, trying to grab the phone. Elara stepped back, and suddenly, a man at table 5, a large man in a grey suit who had been eating alone, stood up. He moved with blurring speed. Before Marcus could touch Elara, the man was there, intercepting Marcus's wrist in a grip of iron. Marcus yelped, "Let go of me! Who are you?" The man in the grey suit didn't look at Marcus. He looked at Elara. "Are you all right, Miss Vance? I engaged as soon as he made contact." Elara nodded at the man. "I'm fine, Arthur. Thank you. I didn't know you were on shift tonight." "Your father likes to keep a detail close when you work the Friday rush," Arthur said, his voice gravelly. He shoved Marcus back into his booth. "Sit down, Mr. Sterling." Marcus sat. He looked at Arthur, clearly ex-military, clearly armed under his jacket, and then at Elara. He realized with dawning horror that he had been poking a sleeping dragon. Elara tapped the screen of her phone. She put it on speaker. The ringtone was a low electronic trill. It rang once, twice, then a click. Elara. The voice was deep, resonant, and terrifyingly calm. It was a voice that moved markets. "Hi, Dad," Elara said, her voice breaking slightly for the first time. "What is it?" The voice on the phone sharpened instantly. "You're calling the emergency line. Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," Elara said, watching Marcus. Marcus was shaking his head, mouthing, "Please no," over and over. "But I'm done with the experiment. I want to come home." "What happened?" Silas Vance asked. The temperature in the room seemed to drop another 10 degrees. "I had a disagreement with a customer," Elara said. "He didn't like the vintage of the Petrus. He decided the best way to express that was to throw the glass at me." "He threw wine on you?" Silas asked. The calm in his voice was gone, replaced by a cold, lethal edge. "Yes," Elara said. "Who is he?" Elara looked Marcus dead in the eyes. Marcus clasped his hands together in a prayer of begging. "His name is Marcus Sterling," Elara said clearly, "of Sterling Heavy Industries." There was a silence on the other end of the line, a long, heavy silence. "Sterling," Silas repeated. "The boy who inherited the shipping yards?" "That's the one," Elara said. I see. The sound of typing came through the speaker. Fast, aggressive typing. Dad? Elara asked. Go to the car, Elara. Arthur will drive you. Leave the uniform. What are you going to do? Marcus Sterling is concerned with the quality of his wine, Silas said, his voice flat. I think he should be more concerned with the liquidity of his assets. Go home, sweetheart. I'll handle the rest. The line went dead. Elara put the phone away. She looked at Marcus one last time. He looked sick. He looked like a man who had just heard his own execution order. You didn't have to do that, Marcus whispered, tears actually welling in his eyes. You don't know what he's capable of. I know exactly what he's capable of, Elara said. And now, so do you. She untied her apron. She balled up the wine-soaked fabric and dropped it onto the table, right next to the empty bottle of Waitress. Table 4 is open, Julian, she called out to the stunned manager. She turned and walked out of the restaurant. Arthur, her bodyguard, followed close behind, casting one last warning look at the room. The double door swung shut behind them. Inside Lubli, the silence lingered for exactly 10 seconds. Then, Marcus's phone rang. He jumped as if he had been electrocuted. He looked at the screen. It was his chief financial officer. He answered it with a trembling hand. Yeah? Marcus! The CFO was screaming. Marcus, what is happening? What did you do? What are you talking about? Marcus hissed, hunching over the table. Our credit lines, all of them. Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, Deutsche. They all just pulled our revolving credit facilities simultaneously. I just got the alerts. We have zero liquidity. Zero. That's impossible, Marcus said, sweat beading on his forehead. We have contracts. They don't care about the contracts. They're citing a breach of moral clause and high-risk volatility. Marcus, without those credit lines, the deal for the Shanghai port falls through tomorrow morning. If that falls through, we trigger the default clauses on the bonds. We're looking at bankruptcy in 48 hours. Marcus felt the room spin. Fix it. Call them back. I did. I called the VP at Chase. He told me the order came from the top. He said you upset the wrong shareholder. Marcus dropped the phone. It clattered onto the table. Chloe was looking at him with horror. Marcus, what's going on? He didn't answer her. His phone buzzed again. A notification from a news app. Breaking. Sterling Heavy Industries stock plunges 15% in after-hours trading amid rumors of SEC investigation. Then another notification. Email. Board of Directors. Emergency meeting called. Subject. Vote of no confidence. It had been less than 3 minutes since Elara hung up the phone. Marcus looked up. The entire restaurant was staring at him. The tech CEOs were whispering and typing furiously, probably shorting his stock. Julian was pretending to polish a glass, avoiding eye contact. Marcus stood up. His legs felt like jelly. I have to go, he muttered. I have to. Sir, Julian's voice cut through the fog. The manager stepped forward, his earlier fear replaced by a newfound bureaucratic stiffness. The bill, sir. The bill? Marcus stared at him, crazy-eyed. My company is collapsing, and you want me to pay the bill? You opened the Waitress, sir, Julian said, pointing to the bottle. And the steak is already on the grill. That'll be $6,400. Marcus patted his pockets for his wallet. He pulled out his black card, the titanium one he loved to flash. He threw it at Julian. Just take it, Marcus snarled, and get out of my way. Julian caught the card. He walked over to the terminal. He inserted the card. He waited. The machine beeped, a loud, harsh rejection noise. Julian frowned. He tried it again. Beep. Declined, Julian announced, his voice carrying to the back of the room. Try it again. Marcus screamed. "It has no limit. It says, 'Card reported stolen, frozen by issuer,'" Julian said. He looked up at Marcus. "Do you have another form of payment?" Marcus checked his other cards. His corporate Amex, his personal Visa. Declined. Declined. Silas Vance wasn't just attacking the company. He was freezing Marcus's personal assets. He was locking him out of his own life. Marcus stammered. "I don't have cash." "That is a problem," Julian said. He signaled to the hostess. "Sarah, call the police. We have a dine and dash situation." "You can't be serious," Marcus yelled. "I'm Marcus Sterling." "Not anymore, it seems." A voice came from table 7. One of the tech CEOs stood up. "I just checked the news, Marcus. The board just announced they've appointed an interim CEO. You're out." Marcus sank back into the booth. He looked at the empty seat where Ilara had stood. He looked at the wine stain on the tablecloth. Chloe stood up. She grabbed her purse. "Where are you going?" Marcus asked weakly. "I'm not staying for the police," Chloe said. "And frankly, Marcus, the wine did taste fine. You were just being a prick." She walked away, her heels clicking on the floorboards. Marcus sat alone in the booth at the best table in the city, watching the lights of New York twinkle below him. He realized, with a crushing certainty, that he would never look at this view from this height again. Down on the street, a black town car pulled away from the curb. Inside, Ilara sat in the back seat, watching the Sovereign Tower recede into the distance. She wiped the last spot of wine from her neck with a wet wipe Arthur had given her. Her phone buzzed, a text from her father. "Done. Come home. We're having pasta." Ilara smiled, a small, tired, genuine smile. She leaned her head back against the leather seat and closed her eyes. The nightmare shift was over. But for Marcus Sterling, the nightmare was just beginning. The holding cell at the 19th precinct smelled of stale coffee and industrial disinfectant. It was a smell that Marcus Sterling had never encountered in his life. He sat on a cold metal bench, still wearing his bespoke Italian suit, though now the collar was askew and the silk tie hung loosely around his neck like a noose. "Sterling!" a guard barked, banging a baton against the bars. "You made bail! Get out!" Marcus scrambled up. "Who paid it? Was it my lawyer? My father?" The guard laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Your public defender filed a release on recognizance. Nobody paid a dime for you, pal. You're just not considered a flight risk because your passport has been flagged." Marcus walked out into the lobby, blinking under the harsh fluorescent lights. He expected a swarm of paparazzi. He expected his driver, Thomas, to be waiting with a fresh change of clothes and a hot espresso. There was no one. The lobby was empty, except for a drunk man arguing with a desk sergeant and a weeping woman filling out a report. Marcus walked to the glass doors and pushed them open. The night air of New York hit him, humid, gritty, and indifferent. He checked his pockets. He still had his phone, though the battery was at 12%. He had no wallet. The police had kept it as evidence for the theft of services charge from the restaurant. He dialed his father, Richard Sterling. The man had retired to the Hamptons years ago, leaving the company in Marcus's hands. "The number you have reached has been disconnected or is no longer in service." Marcus stared at the screen. Disconnected? His father had had that number for 40 years. He called his mother. Voicemail immediately. He called his best friend, Jason, a hedge fund manager he had parted with in Ibiza just last month. "Marcus?" Jason's voice was a hushed whisper. "Jason, thank God, I need a pickup. I'm at the 19th. Send a car, and I need cash. My cards are frozen." "I can't, man," Jason said. "What do you mean you can't? I let you use my jet for your honeymoon." "Marcus, listen to me," Jason hissed. "You are radioactive. Do you know what happened an hour ago? Silas Vance's legal team sent a memo to every major financial institution in the city. It was a compliance warning regarding any entity associating with you. If I send you a car, my fund gets audited tomorrow. If I lend you $5, the SEC knocks on my door. You are a plague." "Jason, please," Marcus begged, his voice cracking. "I have nowhere to go." "Go to a shelter," Jason said, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry. Don't call this number again." The line went dead. Marcus stood on the sidewalk, the reality of his situation crashing down on him like a collapsing building. He had been erased. It wasn't just that he was broke. He had been excommunicated from the society he lived in. He began to walk. He walked 40 blocks uptown toward his penthouse on Park Avenue. His feet, encased in loafers not designed for walking on concrete, began to blister. He arrived at his building, the Excelsior, at 2:00 a.m. The doorman, a burly man named Eddie, was standing guard. Marcus had walked past Eddie every day for 5 years. He had never learned Eddie's name. He had never tipped him at Christmas. Marcus rushed toward the glass doors. "Open up! I lost my keys." Eddie didn't move. He stood with his arms crossed, blocking the path. "I said open the door!" Marcus snapped, trying to summon his old authority. "Can't do that, Mr. Sterling," Eddie said. His face was impassive, but there was a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. "Building management has been notified that the leaseholder, Sterling Industries, has terminated the housing contract effective immediately. The locks have been changed." "That's illegal. You have to give me 30 days to vacate." "Take it up with the tenant board," Eddie said. "But you ain't getting in tonight." "My stuff is in there. My clothes. My safe." "Moved to storage," Eddie said. "In New Jersey. You'll get a bill." Marcus lunged for the door handle. Eddie put a hand on Marcus's chest, a heavy, immovable hand, and shoved. Marcus stumbled back, tripping over the curb and landing hard on the pavement. He scraped his palms on the rough concrete. "Don't make me call the cops, Marcus," Eddie said, using his first name for the first time. "You don't look like you can afford another arrest." Marcus sat on the ground. He looked up at the golden light spilling from the lobby, a world of warmth and safety he was now barred from. He looked at his reflection in the glass doors. He looked deranged. His hair was wild, his eyes bloodshot, his suit stained with dirt. He stood up shakily. He turned away from his home. He spent that night on a bench in Central Park, clutching his suit jacket around him as the temperature dropped. Every time a squirrel rustled in the leaves, he jumped. The man who had demanded a $6,000 bottle of wine 4 hours ago was now shivering, terrified, and utterly alone. And in the distance, the lights of the city twinkled, mocking him. 3 weeks later, the motel room in Queens smelled worse than the police station. It smelled of mold, cheap cigarettes, and despair. Marcus sat on the edge of the sagging mattress, staring at a small, crackling television set. He had pawned his watch, a Rolex Daytona he had been wearing on his other wrist that night, for a fraction of its value. That cash was almost gone. On the TV screen, a news report was playing. And in a surprising turn of events, the elusive Silas Vance made a public appearance last night at the Metropolitan Museum of Art's charity gala. He was accompanied by his daughter, Ilara Vance, who has recently been appointed to the board of the Vance Foundation. The screen showed footage of Ilara. She looked breathtaking. She was wearing a gown of shimmering silver silk, her hair cascading down her back. She was smiling at the cameras, poised and radiant. She looked nothing like the waitress in the white apron. Sources say Ilara Vance spent the last year working undercover in the service industry, to understand the plight of the working class. The reporter gushed. Social media is calling her the people's heiress. Her popularity is skyrocketing. Marcus picked up a remote and threw it at the TV. It bounced off the screen harmlessly. She planned it, he muttered to the empty room. She set me up. She knew who I was. She baited me. Delusion was the only thing keeping him warm. He refused to accept that his own cruelty was the cause of his downfall. In his mind, he was the victim. He was the martyr. A knock on the door made him freeze. "Rent's not due till Tuesday," he shouted. "I'm not the landlord," a female voice replied. It was smooth, confident, and definitely didn't belong in this motel. Marcus hesitated. He walked to the door and peered through the peephole. A woman stood there. She was in her 40s, wearing a sharp crimson trench coat and oversized sunglasses. She looked like a shark in human skin. Marcus opened the door a crack, leaving the chain on. "Who are you?" "My name is Julianne Thorne," the woman said. She held up a business card. "I'm an attorney, but I specialize in crisis management and retribution." "I don't have money for a lawyer," Marcus spat. "I know." Julianne smiled. Her teeth were very white. "I'm not here for your money, Marcus. I'm here because we have a mutual enemy. May I come in? It smells like urine out here." Marcus undid the chain. Julianne entered the room, looking around with mild distaste, but refusing to sit down. She turned to Marcus. "Look at you," she said softly. "The Prince of New York, reduced to this. It's a tragedy." "What do you want?" Marcus asked, leaning against the peeling wallpaper. "Silas Vance destroyed my father's company 10 years ago," Julianne said. Her voice lost its smoothness, revealing a jagged edge of hate. "He bought us out for pennies on the dollar, stripped the assets, and fired everyone. My father committed suicide a month later." Marcus straightened up. "You hate him too." "I despise him," Julianne corrected. "And I have been watching you, Marcus. I saw what happened. The media narrative is that you were a monster who attacked a defenseless girl. But I know the truth." "Yes," Marcus exclaimed, his eyes lighting up. "She provoked me. She was incompetent. She humiliated me first." "Exactly," Julianne lied. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "The Vances think they are untouchable. They think they can ruin a man's life over a spilled glass of wine. But they made a mistake. They left you alive." "I have nothing," Marcus said, his shoulders slumping. "They froze my accounts. They blacklisted me." "You have a voice," Julianne said, "and you have me. I represent a consortium of investors who are tired of Silas Vance's monopoly. We want to fund a lawsuit, a massive, public defamation lawsuit. We want you to go on TV, Marcus. We want you to tell the world how the Vances entrapped you, how Elara Vance used her undercover stunt to target a competitor." "Will people believe me if we spin it right?" Julianne said. "Americans love a comeback story, and they hate the secret elite. We paint Silas as the bully. We paint you as the victim of a corporate hit job. We can get your company back, Marcus. We can get your life back." Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline he hadn't felt in weeks. Revenge. It tasted sweeter than the 82 Petrus ever could. "What do I have to do?" Julianne reached into her designer bag and pulled out a sleek smartphone and an envelope of cash. "First, get a shower and a shave. Buy a suit. Tomorrow morning, we hold a press conference on the steps of the courthouse. You're going to sue Elara Vance for $10 million for emotional distress and entrapment. $10 million, Marcus whispered. "And," Julianne added, a cruel glint in her eye, "we're going to release the security footage." "What footage?" Marcus asked. The restaurant footage shows me being aggressive. Not the way my tech team has edited it, Julianne smirked. In our version, it looks like she trips you. It looks like she threw the wine first. It's amazing what AI can do these days. Marcus stared at her. This was dirty. This was dangerous. If he got caught, he would go to prison for real. But then he looked around the filthy motel room. He thought about the doorman pushing him. He thought about Ilara's perfect smile on the news. "Do it," Marcus said. "Excellent," Julianne said. She turned to leave. "Be ready at 8:15 a.m. The war begins tomorrow." As the door closed, Marcus clutched the envelope of cash. He felt powerful again. He didn't realize that he wasn't a partner in this war. He was just ammunition. Julianne Thorne didn't care if Marcus won or lost. She just wanted to throw a grenade at the Vance Empire to see where the cracks formed. And Marcus had just pulled the pin. The steps of the New York Supreme Court were a sea of microphones and camera lenses. It was 8:15 a.m., and the morning sun glared off the pavement. Marcus stood behind a podium, wearing a charcoal suit Julianne had bought him with cash. He looked respectable again. He looked like a victim. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice steady. "For weeks, I have been painted as a villain. I lost my company, my home, and my reputation. But today, the truth comes out." Julianne stood beside him, looking solemn. She nodded for him to continue. "Ilara Vance didn't just work as a waitress," Marcus said, leaning into the microphone. "She was an operative sent to destabilize my company. And that night, I didn't attack her. She attacked me." A murmur went through the crowd of reporters. "We have the security footage," Marcus announced triumphantly. "Play it." A large monitor set up next to the podium flickered to life. The doctored video played. It was grainy, but effective. In this version, Ilara appeared to shove Marcus first. It looked like she poured the wine on herself to frame him. "As you can see," Marcus shouted over the gasps, "I am the victim of a conspiracy by the Vance family to destroy competition." The reporters were shouting questions now. "Mr. Sterling, will you settle? Is this authentic?" Marcus smiled. He had won. He turned to Julianne for a high five, but Julianne wasn't smiling. She was checking her watch. "Right on time," she whispered. "What?" Marcus asked. Suddenly, a fleet of black SUVs screeched to a halt at the curb. The crowd parted instantly. Silas Vance stepped out. He was an older man with silver hair and eyes like chipped ice. Next to him was Ilara. She wore a simple business suit, looking calm and untouched by the chaos. "Turn it off," Silas said. He didn't shout, but his voice carried more weight than the amplified speakers. "You can't stop the truth, Vance," Marcus yelled, high on adrenaline. "I'm suing you for everything you have." Silas walked up the stairs, ignoring the reporters. He stopped 5 feet from Marcus. "That video," Silas said, gesturing to the screen, "is a very impressive deepfake. The pixelation around the hand movements is good, but not perfect." "It's real!" Marcus screamed. "Julianne obtained it." Silas looked at Julianne. "Did she?" Marcus turned to his lawyer. "Tell him, Julianne. Tell him we're going to bury him." Julianne finally smiled. She stepped away from Marcus and walked over to stand beside Silas Vance. "Mr. Sterling," Julianne said coolly, "I don't work for a consortium of investors. I am the head of general counsel for Vance International." Marcus froze. The world tilted on its axis. "What?" "My father never lost a company to Silas," Julianne continued. "My father is Silas's golf partner. We set this up, Marcus." You baited me?" Marcus gasped. "We knew you wouldn't go away quietly," Ilara spoke up for the first time. Her voice was sad. "We knew you would try to lie, to cheat, to claw your way back, no matter who you hurt. But we needed proof of your character for the permanent restraining order. And we needed you to commit a felony on record." "A felony?" Marcus stammered. "Presenting forged evidence in a legal press briefing to influence stock prices," Silas said. "That's market manipulation and fraud. And since you just live-streamed it to the world—" Silas pointed to the bottom of the steps. 2 police officers were walking up, handcuffs already out. "No," Marcus whimpered. "No, she tricked me. Julianne told me to do it." "I gave you a choice," Julianne said coldly. "I offered you a lie. You chose to tell it. An honest man would have refused." The officers grabbed Marcus by the arms. This time there was no bail, no luxury suit, and no hope. "Ilara!" Marcus screamed as they dragged him away. "Ilara, please! I'm sorry, I'll apologize. I'll scrub floors. Please!" Ilara watched him go. She didn't look triumphant. She just looked relieved. "Are you okay?" her father asked, putting a hand on her shoulder. "I am," Ilara said. She looked at the reporters, who were now silent, realizing they had just witnessed a masterclass in justice. "Let's go get that pasta, Dad." They turned and walked back to the car, leaving the empty podium and the blank screen behind them. Marcus Sterling wanted to be remembered, and he would be, as a cautionary tale whispered in the boardrooms of New York for decades to come. Be careful who you step on. You never know who their father is. Marcus Sterling spent the next 5 years in a federal facility for fraud. When he was released, he didn't return to Wall Street. He found a job in a small diner in New Jersey, washing dishes. One rainy Tuesday, a customer snapped her fingers at him. "Hey, boy, my coffee is cold." Marcus looked up. He wiped his hands on his dirty apron. He didn't argue. He didn't sneer. "I'm sorry, Mom," Marcus said softly, his head bowed. "I'll get you a fresh pot right away." He had finally learned his lesson, but the tuition had cost him everything. And that is the story of how one moment of arrogance cost a billionaire his entire empire. It's a reminder that character isn't defined by your bank account, but by how you treat people who can do nothing for you. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. What do you think? Did Marcus deserve his fate, or was the setup too harsh? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.